30 days have 15 days have lapsed. You have 30 days to file a criminal complaint. Now here comes the game changer. Now you will file the complaint with everything. It will be a high pitched complaint. Okay, so has anybody of you seen or interned with a lawyer or observed how a 138 petition is filed or drafted in the courtroom or interned with any lawyer? Any one of you from here? Any one of you?
Ma'am, I think a lot of people have interned, but I don't know if they've interned under criminal lawyers,
No,
because
any one
we've
of
done
you
other
has
work.
seen a 138 petition in court, argument or a hearing, or say for that matter, you must have interned with lawyers. So any one of you have seen a trial court drafting being done or a high court drafting being done? Any one of you? Yes, I think Anjali. Yes, Anjali.
Yes, ma'am. I interned with a lawyer. They drafted 138 petitions.
So, what did you see? Like, what was it like? More like,
They had a lot of things attached,
have you
like
noticed any specific things?
as in specific.
Like, have you seen? Do you know like what it is and how it is to be done? Like, have you seen any such thing?
Yeah, we just made that the petition draft. Like it had that. They already had that the templates and all. We just had to put the names, and with starting with we added some of the things that needs to be like added to the with the code, like adding Vakalatnama checklist and
Right,
little
right.
but there
Okay,
were
so
other sections
I
also
am
added.
going to share a petition. Okay, I think I can share here. I'm sorry, I'm technologically a bit retarded. So you guys have to excuse me by sparing me some time. So I'm just going to share so that you guys can understand about. Can you guys see the screen?
Yeah, we
Yes,
can.
ma'am, we can see your screen.
Yes,
Yes.
You can see. So this was the
Yes.
petition I have argued today in the morning before the Karakaduma court. So if you can see, just a moment, I don't know. Okay, so here it is visible, right? So
Yes, ma'am.
now if you see, so it says the first, should I zoom in? Or are you
M-
guys comfortable?
Ma'am, it's fine, ma'am.
We
I
can
don't
zoom
think
in.
it's too much of a problem.
Okay, so we start with the cause title. Okay, first is the heading of the court, which court it should go under. So either it's a district judge or a CMM or an MMM or the High Court judge. You start with that, and then the most important part is the nomenclature. So here is a criminal revision petition. It is arising out of a 138 case, but I'm unable to show you the main petition because I don't have a soft copy of it. But nonetheless, it should be written. जहाँ पे ये criminal revision लिखा हुआ है ना, you guys can see right the nomenclature. A 138 case is written as criminal complaint. So that's the first nomenclature you need to keep in mind. It's written as criminal complaint case, and then you put the cause title, say supposedly X versus Y, and then you put the section and the PS. Now, can anybody tell me what decides the police station? Which jurisdiction will the police station accrue? Which police station will accrue as jurisdiction in a particular 138 case? Can anybody tell me? It's a legal point, and I'm sure you must not have heard in law school, but anybody in the college while interning, anybody knows which police station will take jurisdiction? No one? There's no one? Okay, so the answer to this is the jurisdiction where the complainant will deposit the check or has the home branch account. Earlier, it was where the accused was residing. A judgment came in 2016 which says that no, it has to be where the complainant has his original account or where he has dropped the check in question. So all cases had a paradigm shift from this district to this district, and there was a entire pandemonium. So now we have cleared everything, and now cases are back on track. So after this, you see the index. Now in the index, the most important part is the court fee. So that you will learn as and when every matter has a different court fee for itself. Then the second most important part is the memo of parties. Now let's go straight to the memo of parties. Before that, let me ask, why is a memo of parties very important in drafting any, say, civil, criminal, quasi-criminal petition? Why is memo of drafting very important? No one?
Ma'am, it
Yes.
cites the address of both the parties.
Why is it? Of course, it's the address of both the parties, but why is it important?
Saurabh,
So
you had
that
raised your hand.
so that ma'am, both the parties can know what are the what are the causes for the action, or for the case, and for the help of the court also, so that court can know what are the facts and figures for the case.
सपोजिटली मान लेते हैं कि मुझे पता ही नहीं करना है मेरे खिलाफ क्या चल रहा है, ऐसे भी क्लाइंट मिलेंगे जिनको फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता कि उनके खिलाफ क्या एक्शंस है. देन आल्सो व्हाई इज इट इम्पोर्टेंट?
to issue
Ma'am,
some
so that then court can pass an order ex parte if the defendants are not going to come to the court.
Even if the court is parting ex parte, I as a complainant can serve it upon them. How does it matter?
So that they court can give a
I
fair
think
chance.
I think Abhishek Kumar has raised his
Ma'am,
hand, and
so
Shashank
that
also.
court can issue summon to that particular party.
Yes. And Shashank, what's your answer?
Yes, ma'am. I was also saying the same thing because
Hello?
hello, am I audible? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you are all.
So summons need to be issued, otherwise principle of natural justice will be violated. So even if the client doesn't want to defend him, still the court has to issue summons.
Okay. Before this, the answer is right, but before this, I'll give you a brief background. How many of you are aware of the Ajmal Kasab case? Everyone is aware, I'm sure. I mean, only
Yes,
Abhishek
ma'am.
is. I think everyone is aware of Ajmal Kasab's case, which
Yes.
just shook the entire fabric of Indian unity and the lives of people. So, if you guys know, I don't know how many of you know, or does anybody know of Afzal Guru's case? He was also hanged, by the way.
Yes, ma'am. He was the main accused in the attack on the parliament.
Yes, right. So what happens is our constitution is a golden constitution. I often call it the golden constitution, though there are certain provisions which is redundant, but yet it's a golden, it's a golden constitution. Why? Because we are a secular country, but major concepts of the constitution has been derived from Hindu law. Okay, apart because Muslims have their separate set of laws, which is the Muslim personal laws, and also Christians and Sikhs and other laws. But constitution mainly, apart from being a secular constitution, the other provisions are mainly derived from the Hindu tenets. If you see into the background, the Vedas have played a very big role into understanding or drafting of the constitution by our forefathers, Mr. B.R. Ambedkar and his entire team. Now, there is a concept in the earlier age of Mahabharata and Ramayana, which is called
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, we can see it. Yeah.
Be easier for you to understand and easier for me to also share my views. Right, I've got it. Just a moment. Is it visible?
Ma'am, not yet, ma'am.
Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible now. We can see it.
Oh God, I
Okay.
just closed it. I closed it myself. I'm so sorry. Just give me 2 minutes. Just a moment. I think it should be visible now. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Right. So everybody can see it's Mrs. Simhar Exim Private Limited, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So yeah. So how should a 138 petition look like? So you've seen the memo of parties, right? So you will try to serve on every possible address because you don't know where a person is hiding. If a person has cheated with you, there is all likelihood that the person is hiding. Okay. So here comes the main petition. So why do we put apart from section 138, 141, 142? Why? Any answers? Why is apart from 138, 141 and 142 important? No answers? You can please Google the 138 Act and see. No? No answers. Hello, am I audible also?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible. You're definitely audible.
Okay. So 141 and 142. 142 is for cognizance of offense, but 141 is a very important section when you're dealing with an accused company. So if an offense is committed by the directors of the company, that makes the company also liable. Company being a juristic person, it is definitely liable. Hence 141. 141 of the Special Act says offenses by companies, and 142 says cognizance of offenses. Okay. So here we will put 141 and 142 and as amended up to date, because of course you would want that all the amendments to take action into your petition. So and then it's a patent dialogue, most respectfully Shobit, you put it in all bail applications, all petitions, be it civil, criminal or anything. So, and then you simply start by explaining what is your locus, who is the complainant, it's a company or it's a private party, and then you go into the facts of the case, that how the check. Okay, for 138 cases, to initiate action, it has to be against a debt or liability. The Honorable Supreme Court is very clear. If it is issued as a friend and there is no debt or liability and the check bounces, there is no legal liability for the person to pay. Supposedly today Surya has approached me and gives me a check and that bounces tomorrow. There is no liability on his part to pay me because we never agreed. There is no agreement so as to say oral also. There is no debt. I have never given him money. So I cannot initiate any legal action. So to substantiate your client's claim in the entire petition, you have to explain, like here I've explained, it's a different set of facts. It was a monthly rental due which happened, that how the due or the liability has accrued. So that's one of the basic ingredient to explain, so that the court tomorrow does not turn around and ask you कि भाई साहब इसमें तो कोई liability या debt है ही नहीं, तो why have you come to the court? To substantiate that, you put that. Then you put elements of criminal law, which is here it was funds insufficient. Is this visible on the screen? This is a case of funds insufficient.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, it's visible.
Yes. So then you explain that you have given, also you put a paragraph that there is intention of cheating. They never had the intention of cheating. Hence, willingly and willfully, they have issued you a bad check in law to cheat you of your hard-earned money, causing wrongful loss to you and corresponding wrongful gain to the accused persons. Now, these are certain criminal law jargons, which I'm throwing. You will keep on hearing them the more you step up the ladder in life, in the in the field of law. That is, I'm repeating again at the cost of repetition, that there has been wrongful loss to your client with corresponding wrongful gain to the accused persons, and there was inception from the beginning to deceive you of your hard-earned money, right? So if you read section 420, these are languages of section 420, it's very clear. Then you mention about the legal notice, which is also called the demand notice, which is issued under 138B of Negotiable Instruments Act. Again, how you can issue a notice by email, by registered AD, by speed post, by courier, and those receipts are very important because the 15-day timeline that a person has will accrue from the date of his knowledge. That is the date from which he receives the legal notice. So you also have to explain that specifically, that from which date he has received it and everything. Also, see here, the last paragraph, that the notice of demand was sent by the complainant to the accused persons at their best known address within the prescribed period of 30 days, and there was no reply from their end within 15 days, and after the lapse of 15 days, within 30 days, you have to come before the court. 138 courts are very particular with respect to the limitation timeline. You have to adhere to that. It is 30, 15, and 30. So this entire gambit of say about 45 days of reaching the court from issuing notice is very important. So do not miss out on this. File within time. And then there is the prayer clause, which says that, take cognizance, because the magistrate, it's a criminal matter, she or he has to take cognizance in order to conduct the trial and summon the accused persons. This is why we need the memo of parties where the summons can be sent, because summons are sent by PF also, which is called the process fee. It goes through the element of the court. Are we clear up till now? Hello? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody is clear? Any doubts?
Ma'am, it's clear, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So post this, you also can ask for compensation in terms of CRPC section 357 and any other, the last paragraph is more of a template where we put this in all things. Then you put the office address and your name, of course. Thereafter, is there any other thing to be put? Is there any additional thing to be put, or this would suffice your petition? People who have intoned must have seen the file. That's the first thing.
Ma'am,
Please tell me.
ma'am, we didn't pray for any remedy under section 420 IPC. We have those ingredients in the petition.
It must be mentioned here. You should put it. Now, it depends from lawyer to lawyer. See, if personally I am drafting the petition, I will definitely put ingredients of 420 and 406, criminal breach of trust. In this case, I was for the accused person, so I was lucky enough that the complainant did not put any charges of me, neither did they file a criminal complaint case against me, right? But you will change the game when you, as a complainant counsel, will put ingredients of 420 and 406, right? So now up till now, is it clear? I think I have made myself clear up till now.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So now, what is the next? Like, will the petition be this much, or there has to be certain other additions to the petition in order for you to file? People who have interned must have seen the physical file at lawyers' offices. Is this much fine for you to file, or you will add certain things? No answers? Have you guys not seen a file? What is the most important thing that accompanies a petition? I am getting an answer, annexure, right? But annexures will be there. Apart from annexures, what is the most important thing without which you cannot file the petition?
Ma'am, wakalatnama?
Ma'am, wakalatnama?
Wakalatnama, yes, but there is a more important thing than a wakalatnama. What is it? Come on, it's a very basic thing, without which you can't even think of filing the petition, of any petition for that matter.
Court stickers?
Sorry?
Court fee stickers, that 2 rupee or 5
कोर्ट फी जो मैंने पहले ही बता दिया वो तो लगेगा. उसके अलावा this is the basic thing without which you can't file. How will you file without that?
Memos.
Memo clerk लगा देगा. उसके अलावा
Ma'am, an affidavit that this is my advocate and
without an affidavit, how will you file? Without an affidavit of the client, who is the master of facts, how will you file? The court will not take cognizance, right? So now another question. Now that leads to another question. Now who will give the affidavit? Come on. Who will give the affidavit? I see there's someone, Pradyuman Mishra, affidavit, right? Now who will give the affidavit?
Ma'am, the client will have to give it, right? Because it's under his
Now,
name that is going to go.
That's a layman term, client. Now, what do you call a person who gives the affidavit? You're all law students here. Come on.
Notary.
Party?
Sorry?
Ma'am, party?
That's again a layman term.
Deponent.
Yes, yes. Mr. Rai, I think you've interned a lot.
No, ma'am, I have filed affidavit, so I signed
Yes,
as a deponent.
yes, yes. The correct terminology is a deponent files an affidavit always. Now that leads us to the third question. An affidavit is usually notarized or oath commissioned. What is it done? And what is the difference between the two? Come on, come on.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
An affidavit is notarized or it is attested by your oath commissioner, and what is the difference between the two? My two questions. An affidavit is notarized or it is attested by an oath commissioner, and the second part of the question is what is the difference between the two? Come on, some answers. No answer.
I'm attested by oath commissioner.
At least. Why? Why? I think Rishabh has answered it. My next question is why?
Because he has the power to certify that, I think.
Why not a notary? Why?
Ma'am, I think your voice is breaking. If I'm.
And what is the difference between the two? Any idea? No one? No one will want to attempt this also? Come on, at least
No,
say
ma'am.
yes or no in the chat
Ma'am,
box. No one?
I had actually got some documents signed by an oath commissioner. So this was just to affirm that that this person has signed these documents in front of me, and these are true to my best knowledge, and these actually exist. So for that purpose, I had gotten some documents signed by the oath commissioner. So for that, I had gone to a fresh advocate, actually, a person who's just very recently graduated as a lawyer and who's enrolled in the bar. Notary, I've not exactly needed to have any document notarized, because if I needed to get something signed like that, I would go to a branch manager of a public sector bank or an IAS officer. So I'm not too sure about the notary public.
That's different. The public sector, you're getting your certificates attested, that's different. Legal documents are completely different. I think I was having an answer apart from Surya. Is 389E, Ritesh? You had something to answer?
No, ma'am.
No. Okay. Now the basic okay, Shashank Rai has raised his hand. Yes, Mr. Rai.
Ma'am, maybe the affidavits that we need to submit to court, they need to be certified by oath commissioner, but some affidavits which we don't need to submit to court, they can be done by notary also, like name change affidavits or similar things for which we don't need to take it to court, so they can be done even by notary.
You're partly right, partly wrong. Okay. So what the difference between an oath commissioner and a notary is that a notary does not affirms them the contents as true. The notary just notarizes it. It's basically they put a stamp on it, which we call in Hindi a thappa on it. It's the local term we use, and gives you the document. Whereas an oath commissioner, apart from putting thappas, will also make you sign on registers kept with him, and will make your lawyer also sign in front of him. A notary also will make you sign on the registrar. But in both court cases, and in court cases, you can file both notary and oath commissioner documents. But courts always will rely on oath commissioner documents more, because you are attesting them to be true to the best of your knowledge or your client's knowledge. Those supporting affidavits which does not contain the contents of the petition can be notarized. Like for example, in a bail application, the main petition will be notarized, will be oath commissionerized, and there is a supporting application where there is a supporting affidavit that can be notarized as well. Got my point? Those set of documents which do not affirm the contents of it as true to the best of your knowledge or from records can be notarized. Affidavits which mention that paragraphs this and this are true to the best of your client's knowledge or are from has been gathered from records needs to be oath commissionerized. Only an oath can attest the documents. A notary does not have the power to attest any document. So in a 138 case, we will always do what? Which part will we go to? We'll go to an oath commissioner or we'll go to a notary? Who will we go to? We'll go to no one. Hello?
Both, ma'am. Both, ma'am.
No, we will go to an oath commissioner because the format or the template of a 138 case is where the client will say or the deponent will say in first person, I. He's confirming everything to the best of his knowledge or from reports. So this document has to be 100% attested by oath commissioner, right? So here you see he gives his details, his age, his residence, and then he says that this person has done this offense with him and it is pending with you, and it's a simpliciter, verification clause will come, he will sign above deponent, and an oath commissioner will attest it. Now the second part of the 138 petition, without which you cannot file a petition, is this part. It is evidence by way of affidavit. Now 138 cases being, just a moment. 138 cases being essentially a summon triable case, you will give every document, every proof, every evidence you have to the court on the first day of filing itself. Okay, so how does it look like? It looks like the exact copy of the petition, just that the language changes in first person and you start annexing documents here. So in a 138 petition, the documents are annexed in evidence by way of affidavit. So the first paragraph, will have the deponent's details and how he has the power to initiate the case. So here you see there's a document called Exhibit CW 1/1. Is this visible?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Right. So in a 138 case, since it's a summon triable case and it's a case where you're giving evidence on the first day itself, the documents has to be exhibited. So rather than calling them as annexures, we always put them as Exhibit CW 1/, whatever, CW 1/A or A upon 1, likewise. It depends on a personal style of a lawyer. But it is always exhibit. Now, apart from this, let's directly jump to a criminal trial. A murder supposedly has happened. If a murder has happened, there of course will be an FIR. There of course will be an autopsy report, right? Now, how will those reports come into the ambit of the courtroom? How will that come into the ambit of a courtroom? Any answers? No? Nobody has visited a trial courtroom or experienced how a trial court works? It may be a wrong answer, but at least I need to have an answer. Anyone? No one?
Ma'am, when prosecution makes the case, so it files those report as exhibit or annexure supporting the case.
Right. So what happens is, there is an offense. The police has to file a report. It is called the final report under 173 of CRPC. A final report can come in the nature of a charge sheet where there is evidence that a crime has happened, or it can also come in the form of a closure report where the police will annex documents and say that there is no offense committed. these documents available. The public prosecutor takes into the charge. He will call those prosecution witnesses and make those relevant documents as exhibits. So in criminal trial, high court, appellate court is a different thing. There we call it annexures, but the first jurisdiction which lies with the trial court or with the MM court or with the sessions court in 7 years up trial, it is always exhibit and not annexures. Why? Because the court is deriving the power of cognizance. If it's an annexure, the court does not have any part to cognizance. Hence, often you will see that high court orders will say that the trial court to take cognizance of these offenses, the trial court to take bail bonds to the satisfaction of the trial court. Why? As an appellate body, they do not have that power. Okay. So that's a different aspect. We'll cover that some other day. What are the aspects? So here you see all annexures are marked as exhibits. Right. So it's just the exact copy of what is there in the petition, but it is in the first person's name. Why? Because an evidence by way of affidavit to be given by the deponent. So you put all annexures here in the form of exhibits. Then you put deponent, your client will sign, verification clause, and list of witnesses. Now, in 138 case, there is no police to help you. 138 case, you're the master of your client. You will have to give witnesses and list of documents on which you will rely during the entire trial to prove the offense of 138, right? So you will give a list of witnesses. Generally in 138 case, it's a simpliciter case where you will give officers of the bank, postal authorities, because you've sent the demand notice to the postal authorities. And then here it was a lease deed, like I told you, it was a tenancy issue where checks bounced, and any other witnesses with the permission of court later on, as and when you will find. There is also a list of documents. Now this list of documents is nothing but the exhibits that you have marked in the evidence by way of affidavit, right? And lastly, you will put your wakalatnama, until which you cannot file the case. So everybody had an idea of about how a 138 case drafting would go. Then you go to the court, you stand in the queue with the clerks, you get first-hand experiences of how filings are done, you file it, you get a date, and on the first day, you convince the judge that how you're within the ambit of 138, how there has been a debt or a liability, you take help of judgments, and you also show the timeline, which is very important. Like I said, in 138 cases, timelines is very important. And the court will issue summons, the process will follow, the accused comes, good. If he doesn't come, no, again, there has been an amendment in 2019 or 18, I think, which says that on the very first day, after the accused person has entered appearance, if the complainant files an application seeking 20% of the money, of the check value, the court has the power to give maximum of 20%. So you can also give your client some relief, monetary relief, ki aapke paise kuch to nikalwa liya maine, this is the common line as lawyers, we tell our clients, ki, we are getting you 20%, which is not a small amount in these trying times. So you can always go for that. And if the other side does not appear, then what's the next stage? What is the next stage in that case? If the other side is not appearing, then what steps will you take?
Ma'am, you could pray for an ex parte degree if the other side does not come.
A criminal does not operate on ex parte.
Oh, sorry. This is, yeah. Ma'am, but if the other side does not come, then the court again has to probably issue another summons, or they have to send the police to arrest them, right? You can ask them to be arrested or at least detained if they do not appear.
So your answer is partly correct, partly wrong. Where you've gone right, I'll tell you. The court can issue again and summon. And your next answer was the court will send police. No, court to SA police can't send anybody's house. Already we keep on questioning the government every day and the police every day that, there is atrocities committed by police and state government and national government and this and that. So there'll be a media, right? So there is a step. Now what is that step? First is summons. Second step you can do for your clients is getting a bailable warrant issued against the accused persons. Now, if the accused persons are not appearing for that, also you will ask the court for issuance of non-bailable warrants. Warrants which are non-bailable, if executed, the accused persons will be arrested. That is where police station has a very important role, why we put up in every first page of memo of parties or the index. You've seen, right? In this case, it was Vivek Vihar, because it is from that police station that local police will go and arrest him. The person might be sitting in CR Park. So from Vivek Vihar, the police will come to arrest him in CR Park. Now, supposedly NBWs are also not getting executed. Then what is the next stage? Any one of you? If NBWs are also not getting, executed, then what is the next stage? No one? No one? None of you from 52 candidates, at least?
Ma'am, the
Yes.
court could declare him to be a proclaimed offender.
At the first instance, or at the second instance or the third instance?
Maybe before that, the court can ask for seizure of his properties.
Okay. Now, declaring a person as proclaimed offender, can we all, you can always Google, can we have section 82 of CRPC? Because it's a very interesting aspect of law. And I will end with this position of law, because 82 will help not only in 138, but in other criminal cases also, because it's a CRPC governs everything. So can we all have section 82 of CRPC? You
Ma'am,
guys can Google.
present it. I could present section 82.
Yes,
on the
please.
screen.
That would be great. Yes, that would be great.
Yeah, just a second.
Yeah.
Is it visible? Is it visible now?
Yes, I can see it.
Yeah.
Now let's read it. Proclamation for person absconding. Now, if a person is not coming to court, that means he's absconding, as rightly pointed out by Amit. So, if somebody can read it, because it's very small, I can't see.
Ma'am,
it.
I can read it.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So section 82 CRPC 82(1), if any court has reason to believe, whether after taking evidence or not, that any person against whom a warrant has been issued by it has absconded or is concealing himself so that such warrant cannot be executed, such court may publish a written proclamation requiring him to appear at a specified place and at a specified time not less than 30 days from date of publishing such proclamation. The proclamation shall be published as follows. It shall be publicly read in some conspicuous place of the town or village in which such person ordinarily resides. It shall be affixed to some conspicuous part of the house or homestead in which such person ordinarily resides, or to some conspicuous place of such town or village. A copy thereof shall be affixed to some conspicuous part of the courthouse. The court may also, if it thinks fit, direct a copy of the proclamation to be published in a daily newspaper circulating in the place in which the person ordinarily resides. A statement in writing by the court issuing the proclamation to the effect that the proclamation was duly published on a specified day in the manner specified in clause 1 of subsection 2 shall be conclusive evidence that the requirements of this section have been complied with and that the proclamation was published on that day.
Right. Can we pause here?
Ma'am, can I stop? Do I need to present the screen now, or is it fine?
No, you don't need to present the screen. You might need to present the screen a little later. I would like to show you how a proclamation looks like. Because since we are all doing practical experience here, we are gathering practical experience here. So I would like to show you how a proclamation in reality looks like. Proclamation, parcha keh lo, ya fir whatever you call it. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible. It's
So
coming up.
it
Yes, ma'am.
says ordinary urgent dusty. These are the modes by which it is issued. Now there is a date of order. There is the name of process server. There's a date of filing PF, which is not applicable. Now there's a date of issue. This date of issue is the main thing. Now there are no documents annexed with it. and there is the next date of hearing given here, right? Now this is issued, it's not visible in the scan copy, this is issued by CMM T. Hazari. In FIR number this, whatever police station, it's a rape case, 376. Now how does it look like? It looks like this. So there's a heading here, again the courtroom number, and it is written to the concerned police station which has the jurisdiction. It's this police station which has registered the FIR, so it will be issued to the concerned jurisdiction. And it says, whereas complaint has been made before me that this person, resident, has committed or is suspected to have committed offense punishable under 376. In your case, it will be under 138 of Negotiable Instrument Act, and it has been returned to a warrant of arrest thereupon issued that the said above person cannot be found, whereas it has been shown to my satisfaction that the above said person has absconded or is concealing, and that person by proclamation may be brought before this court, and the court officer signs it. So this is how a proclamation proceeding, or a proclamation warrant rather, looks like, right? But in a 138 case. Now let's go back to section 82. Can we have that on screen again?
Yes, ma'am, just a second.
Yes. And I specifically want section 82, clause 4.
Ma'am, just a second.
Yes, please.
Ma'am, in the meanwhile, if non-bailable warrant against the person has not been executed, then what is the guarantee that this proclamation will be executed, because it is also being addressed to the SHO only. The person has absconded.
Yes. So the answer will come after I explain 82.
Okay.
Right?
Ma'am, sorry, just a second.
Yes, that's okay. But the answer, it's a very important question that you have raised is, and there lies all the frustration of the clients and of the lawyers. It is a very frustrating profession because results are not seen overnight. It's a very long path of justice, because justice can't see anything what is there portrayed in front of it. So it's a long path, and there are a lot of strategies that you have to adopt. So I'll give you the answer.
Ma'am, is it visible?
Yes. Could you read just subsection 4?
Subsection 4. Yes, ma'am, just a second. Where a proclamation published under subsection 1 is in respect of a person accused
just
of an offense.
Pause for a minute. We have seen what is subsection 1, and we also have seen how a proclamation in real sense looks like. It's a piece of paper, but it has arrest powers with it, right? So all of us have seen that, right? Yes or no? At least in the chat box you can type a why at least, right? Okay. So
Yes.
now we dwell into the next part. Yes. Now proceed.
Yes, ma'am. Where a proclamation has been published under subsection 1 is in respect of a person accused of an offense punishable under section 302, 304, 364, 367, 382, 392, 393, 394, 395, 396, 397, 398, 399, 400, 402, 436, 449, 459, 460 of the Indian Penal Code, 45 of 1860, and such person fails to appear at a specified place and time required by the proclamation, the court may, after making such inquiry as it thinks fit, pronounce him a proclaimed offender and make a declaration to that effect. Ma'am, should I read 5 as well?
No, this much is enough. 5 is redundant for us. That's okay. So we have all seen 138 तो इसमें दिया ही नहीं है, right? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So is section 420 also given? It is the Delhi police is burdened with cheating cases. 420 is also not given.
No,
Is it
ma'am.
given?
No.
Right. So what is the stage? What should be done? Proclamation तो court ने issue कर दिया. You can issue for 82 process. 82 process is proclamation. So what will you do? There is a direct bar. As per CRPC, there is a direct bar. You cannot declare a person a proclaimed offender. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
What is the remedy then? No remedy. You
Ma'am, the
can.
only thing is this
Tell me,
is,
tell me. I have a lot of answers. Please tell me.
I think someone else was speaking. I'll go after that. I think Amit was speaking.
The court can order attachment of the properties of the accused.
It is criminal court. How does the court have a power to attach properties? वो तो civil court के पास होगा. Criminal court के पास they don't have attachment property powers also. Next.
Ma'am, that was also what was going to be my answer. I thought if there is no other way, you could at least attach
The correct answer to is you will ask the process. We have seen in a proclamation, in an actual proclamation, there is process server also written. The name is also written of the concerned person who will be the process server. He is basically a head constable who will go there. His statements will be recorded in the court, and the accused person will be declared as a proclaimed person, but not a proclaimed offender. I'm not audible. Anjali Kumari is saying, ma'am, you're not audible. Am I audible?
Ma'am, I can hear you.
Audible. Sorry, ma'am.
Ma'am, I think you're audible.
Sorry, ma'am.
Okay. So, there is a difference between a proclaimed offender and a proclaimed person. What is the difference? People committing only some sets of offenses as prescribed under CRPC can be declared as a proclaimed offender, under whom 174A FIR can be lodged of IPC. 174A IPC and FIR for being an absconder under those category can be declared as a proclaimed person, and an FIR under 174A part 1 has to be lodged. So basically it's the same section, but the subsection changes, so the entire gambit of law changes. So there is a proclaimed offender, there is a proclaimed person. The correlation is 174A FIR, 174A part 1 FIR. So any cases which, and most lawyers who I have come across does not know this distinction and will go to the court and shout ki proclaimed offender declare kar diya jaye. If you are the smart lawyer there, you go present your case and say, no my lords, at best it can be a proclaimed person, and 174A part 1 FIR can be lodged. You are saving your client from at least the downfall. You are just saying that you are hanging, but not just hanged. So that's the difference. So with this, I think we have covered the basics of 138 and what happens if an accused person does not appear. And if he appears, well and good, the trial will go on. Statements will be recorded. You will cross-examine the other side will bring in defense witnesses. You will cross-examine them. And finally, judgments will be delivered. Okay, so if the real either if they are settled most of the time, or the other side does not appear. Now, if they don't appear, you can go and file another FIR under 174A part 1 after declaring the accused persons as proclaimed person. Now, that can happen only after the statement of the process server is recorded, not before that. Now, that itself takes about 3 to 4 months, depending on the court, because not in one day the proclamation proceedings will start. It will take a day. Now, the person will go, the head constable will come back with certain things. So that will take another 2-3 days. Then on the 4th day, he will come and record his statement. Once the statements are recorded, you can go get an FIR registered. Once the FIR is registered, of course, police to kisi ko bhi dhoond sakti hai. If Delhi police wants, they can find anybody from anywhere. So this is how you can, help your clients, and vice versa. If you're on the accused side, you will go to the CMM. You will ask for cancellation of proclamation proceedings and NBW. The CMM will not listen. What happened with me? The CMM did not listen and said, "No, aap to bhagora hai, aap to ye kar liye." I went to the sessions court. Today was the hearing for sessions court. The sessions court heard me and gave me a date. If the Sessions Court do not intend to hear me and dismisses my petition, I have the remedy under High Court. Under which section? Under which section do we go in criminal petitions to the High Court? Which is the maximum? Yes, 482. Why? Because it's the inherent power, right? Many of you are answering here. 482. It's the inherent power and is the widest power given under CRPC to the High Court. So we go there and we file petitions, and then there's the fate of the client and your hard work, how we'll go into it. So I think I have blabbered a lot. I don't know how much of it made sense to you, but you know, what you learn inside the gates of a law school is completely different what you will gather experience outside the gates of a law school, inside the premises of a courtroom. So this is just a part. This is the tip of an. I think there is a hand raised. Yes.
Ma'am, I just wanted to ask you a question. That beyond this declaration,
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me, ma'am? Am I audible?
Amit, why don't you just type your question into the chat box, then ma'am will be able to see it.
Right.
Apart from that, you know, there are pure criminal cases which will register as an FIR and will go, trial will happen. So we'll cover that on some other date, how cross examinations are done, how writ petitions are taken up in High Court, how a quashing petition is done, what is the difference. Then there are bail applications also. There are 3-4 types of bail applications. But just as a general rule, how many type of bail applications do you guys know? What are the type of bail applications do you guys know? Anticipatory bail and?
Romil, was that you?
Transfer bail.
It's not transfer bail, rather it's called transit bail.
Yes, ma'am.
Transit bail. So there is anticipatory transit. Any other bail? Any other?
Statutory bail.
Yes, there is statutory bail also. Another one?
The regular bail.
Yes. Yes. Interim bail will come a part of anticipatory itself and transit also. Now, what is a transit bail?
So a person accused is being transited from, let's say in Jaipur in Rajasthan to Delhi. So for that period of time, he will be not arrested, and when he comes to Delhi, he will be arrested. So that is the protection that we are seeking.
During the transit period, if the offense has happened outside the jurisdiction of his house and he needs to be present there, during his transit, he will not be arrested, but he'll surrender himself to the proper jurisdiction of the concerned department or area, right? And what is statutory bail?
For offences whose punishment is less than 10 years, then if the investigation is not complete within 60 days, then he will get defaulted.
Mr. Rai, it seems you have done your entire internship. You've become a total lawyer in 5 years.
No, ma'am, it's just theoretical knowledge. I'm still waiting for practical.
Your theoretical knowledge is pretty sound and strong. Oh, yes, that's the case. Can I have your face once on the screen?
Yes, ma'am, just a second. I hope I'm visible.
Yes. So you want to enter judiciary or you want to do practice?
Practice, ma'am, litigation.
So you have already learned the basics of the trade. So I'm sure you'll fare well, and others also. Yes, it comes under 167. There is a very famous judgment, I think Raisa Begum versus State of Assam, where the Honorable Supreme Court has laid down the guidelines. I think I might be wrong with the first name, but it's versus State of UP, State of Assam. It came sometime in 2017, 2018. It lays the guidelines of statutory bail. And transit bail is very common, and we all know what is anticipatory bail and what is regular bail. I have also an interesting question. I think Amit was asking something in the chat box. I'm waiting for that question. So my last question to you.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I cannot type it because I'm watching this through phone, so it's difficult. It's not possible for me to type.
Okay, so you can ask. I'll try to hear as much as possible.
Ma'am, my question was that if a person is declared a proclaimed person, other than that, doesn't a complainant have any other remedy beyond this declaration? If the accused is never found, does that mean that the case will just stand hold and he will not be able to recover his money?
Unfortunately, the answer is yes. The case will be transferred to the consigned room, record room, and as and when the person will be arrested, the matter will be taken up. Or you can go under 174A, get an FIR registered, and the police will take his own action under 174A. So if the police finds him under 174A, of course, they will present him here because that's the genesis of the matter. Right. So my last question, sorry?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. So my last question before we end this session, because I'm over time, the session has gone. I was called for 45 minutes, but I'm blabbering since about more than an hour now. My last question to you before I leave is, there is a very important judgment that has come. I'll just share the name of the judgment. It is on criminal law, and also more importantly, it dwells upon bail, warrants, and all such cases. But before I share that judgment, what I would like to ask is, say supposedly during the entire period of investigation, right from the stage of complaint till the stage of filing the charge sheet, if your accused persons are not arrested and charge sheet is going to be filed, should the accused persons be arrested or should they not be arrested? Like, what in your mind is the idea?
Ma'am, to my knowledge, I think the arrest of the person will happen only if the person proves to be either a flight risk or if he or she is going to say threaten.
As for Delhi Police, CBI, AD, every accused person has flight risk. So all the passports are seized on the very first day. We just snatch it away and go. So everyone is on flight risk.
Ma'am, so again, as per my understanding, they would probably look at whether this person is capable of manipulating evidence or threatening any of the witnesses.
Every person is capable. According to Delhi Police, every person. Right? I'm accused. You're the accused. You are the right. So,
ma'am, I mean, practically speaking, yes. I mean, in most cases, especially if it's murder or something, yes, definitely they are.
I have Shelly Chiller's hand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ma'am, if the charges have been framed, I think
No, I'm talking before charges of framing. I'm talking, okay. Do you know the stages of a criminal, rigmaroles of criminal justice system? What are the stages of criminal justice system?
And first, you would take cognizance of the first of FIR is filed.
There is offense. First, Shashank Rai has raised his hand. Yes, Shashank. He has become a lawyer already.
First there is offense, then someone complains to the police or he takes the complaint to the magistrate.
Right.
Accordingly, if it is police, then if it is non-cognizable offense, then the police will register FIR.
Right.
Or if he refuses to register, then the further remedies from magistrate and so on. After the FIR is registered, then he starts investigation.
Mm-hmm.
After the investigation, either a charge sheet is filed or a closure report is filed.
Right.
And after that, the charges will be framed and those things will take.
Okay, so you've gone a step further. Now, at the time of from the time of FIR till the time of charge sheet, the accused persons are not arrested. At the time of filing, charge sheets are filed before the concerned magistrate or the ASG, right? Before the magistrate only. ASG is not even ASGs. If it's a sessions tribal case, the magistrate will remand it to the ASG. So from the time of filing, registering the FIR till the time of filing the charge sheet, the accused persons are not arrested in a matter. So will they be arrested at the time of presenting the charge sheet? What, according to you, is the idea? Is the prevalent norm? Shelly has her hand. Yes.
Ma'am, I think the accused will not be arrested.
Why?
I think there was a judgment, and I don't remember the name of the judgment.
There has been divided opinions across all courts, though Delhi High Court has been leading the battle with very liberal mindset, and I have been fortunate enough to represent in a suo motu case as an amicus by Honorable Delhi High Court, which said that no, they should not be arrested, and it was given by a dynamic judge who was then transferred, Mr. Muralidhar. Personally, I respect him. He is a dynamic judge. You should go through his judgments, both civil and criminal. You'll get to learn a lot. He was the first one to say that no, if he is not arrested during the entire process of trial, that does not mean that his custody is not required. So, but there are high courts which say no, it is a process, you have to arrest the person. The draconian set of law which says that nahi, इन्हें तो अन्याय किया है, you know, it's a Rajdand. We generally use the term that criminal law is Rajdand. You know, earlier Rajas used to give it in the carnation of God, used to think so that they are gods. So it has passed on. So now Supreme Court recently on 7th of October has passed this judgment, Satyendra Kumar Antil versus Central Bureau of Investigation, and they have formulated an entire category. There are 3-4 categories, category A, B, C, and D, and based on those categories you can fall your case under and see whether those persons should be arrested or not arrested. So the law is not settled. You guys should understand this this judgment, and I have also published an article on this, so you can always LinkedIn my profile and read that article. It will give you a clearer view, and also the background of this judgment where the courts were divided in opinion. So these are some of the basics. Baki to, you have to keep on learning till your last breath as a lawyer, because we always tell ourselves as students and not masters of law, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So I hope that you guys have gained an inch also from whatever I shared my experience to be.
Ma'am, one last question.
Yes.
In this discussion that we discussed, that the person has not been arrested from the filing of complaint to charge sheet. So the current status, the current is he should not be arrested. But the point is, what if at the time of framing charges, the magistrate frames charge for a non-bailable offense? Then he should have been arrested. Otherwise, if he has not been arrested, then he will run away.
See, okay, have you heard about Prevention of Corruption Act?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Are those bailable or non-bailable offenses?
They are bailable.
Prevention of Corruption Act, you're curbing corruption. How can they be bailable?
In some Sanjay Gandhi or in some Gurbachan Singh case, Supreme Court said that it's not necessary.
Gurbaksh Singh Sibia case is a landmark case.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That was for anticipatory bail. Sorry, ma'am.
Prevention of Corruption Act is. Please tell me.
And I think, sorry, that was a case where there was a custodial death, if I'm not wrong. He was a DCP or he was a DGP or something.
Yes.
And him and 2 other people, because
Yes.
that person allegedly threatened Sanjay Gandhi.
Yes. That's a
That was a case of bail.
set of facts, and the beauty of criminal law is no facts will totally cover your case. That's human mind. You're dealing with psychology of people. You're dealing with different minds every day, different subsets of facts where human minds are operating. It's not some robot coming in. It's not Elon Musk's robot coming in perpetrating the crime upon someone. It's one of you. It's one of us. It can be me tomorrow. It can be you day after. So it's very important to understand that we are dealing with human psychology here. So every case is different. It may be non-bailable case. There are 498A, a section which has been misused by being a female. I'm saying this, and I have no shame also in accepting this, because I'm not a feminist per se. I believe in equality. The moment equality comes, feminism will go out of the window, because feminism is about claiming extra rights. But if you claim for equality, that is the concept of feminism. I am not a feminist. If people tell me that are you a feminist, I will strongly object. No, I believe in equality. I believe in Section 40, Article 14 of the Constitution of India, which gives you the right of equality. So if you're claiming equal rights, you have to stand up if there is an elderly person, be it a girl or a boy at a metro ride. So all 498A is a non-bailable offense, but that has been misused rampantly across the length and breadth, till Kanyakumari to Himachal, from Gujarat to Arunachal Pradesh. So there is a famous judgment, Arnish Kumar versus State of Bihar, where the Honorable High Court, Justice Pinaki Ghosh, has formulated that any offense which is up to the maximum punishment of 7 years should not be arrested. 7 years mein to the maximum offenses are non-bailable. So it might be the case that, it might, though in very few cases, I don't think there are any cases, but if, for example, for the sake of argument, we say there's a 302 murder case, and during the entire tenure from FIR till charge sheet, I have committed a murder, but the police has not arrested me. It can be tomorrow, case can come up like that, okay? And I'm not arrested. and tomorrow I am charge sheet is being filed, and there are categories given by by the Supreme Court in Satyendra Kumar Antle, where I fall in one of the categories where I should not be arrested. Then I should not be arrested. It's a simple logic. I should not be arrested. In PC Act cases, being non-bailable offenses, they are never arrested during the entire course of investigation. Earlier, the law was. Have you heard about Rohit Tandon's case? The famous demonetization case. When demonetization happened, there was 3 crores cash recovered from his office.
Ma'am, was this the Axis Bank person, or was this another case?
Yes, it is linked with that case. I am still the on-record counsel for Mr. Rohit Tandon. He's a lawyer himself.
Okay.
TNT law firm. If you Google, you will come to know.
Right.
So he was arrested, of course, but his associates and the bank employees and the Kotak Bank employees also were not arrested. So we requested the learned a special judge, because it's a special court. It's a crime branch case. It will be a special court. We requested, they were never arrested during the investigation. So what purpose will it serve to keep them in custody? The courts listened to us, and that matter was referred to High Court at Suomoto, where I was appointed as one of the amicus also to assist the main counsels. So the court said that, okay, there's no point in arresting, because custody nahi zarurat hai, to a trial can go on for years, and we've seen how trials can go on in India. It's for umpteen number of years that cases are going on. So what justice will it serve? And at the end of the case, like in 2G scam, they have been scot-free. They have been declared of no offense.
Right.
So if you keep a person behind bar, can you give that day back to that person? We can't do that. We are not gods. You're all human beings. So hence bail and not jail, as rightly said, by learned jurists, that this is the concept. So because jail is a correctional home, but in my opinion, I have gone to jails and I love going there. It's a different atmosphere. When you interact with convicts, the aggression you see there, it's not a correctional home to me. It is not. It was said that jails are correctional homes, but in reality, they are homes for vengeance. They are homes for jealousy, anger, and people return as more hardened criminals, especially juveniles or 18 to 21 ages. So there is no point keeping a person behind bars, because whatever the end of the legal battle, the person is declared scot-free, which is often in India, conviction rate is 3%. So the acquittal rate is 97%. So hail defense lawyers that the conviction rate may reach 100% someday, and let the prosecution step up in that case. So that's the thing, right? So I hope it was a fruitful class.
Ma'am, it was. I think I picked up more about CRPC than I did in my class. In the 2-3 months of CRPC class.
My pleasure. But there is more to CRPC. You learn as and when you practice. Every case gives you experience. You might get beatings from your bosses. You might get harsh words from clerks also, because of course you're not supposed to know. But every day is an experience. Every moment you should enjoy. It's if you have passion for law, then only you will survive and succeed litigation. Otherwise, litigation is a very tough area. So I come from a family of lawyers, but I have done from scratch in Delhi. I had graduated. I got an offer from a very leading national law firm, where I could mint money today, but I left that and I decided to do criminal litigation. The only reason being, let me be very honest, it's being the easiest. But after I entered, I learned it's a game of nerves and patience and blood pressure. So the moment you can control your blood pressure and your patience and your anxiety, you are sure to win. So, you're going to get clashing from judges, from your seniors, from your colleagues, from clerks, but it's a learning experience. And if you enjoy it, of course, money will flow. So in your first 3 years of your career, don't run after money, but run after learning work. So that's the most important. Money will come. Money will come. If you're passionate about this profession, money has to come. Right?
Yes.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, Romil, ma'am, I invite Romil to present a vote of thanks.
Right. Sure.
Thank you, Surya. Today was a captivating session on the practical aspects of drafting. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I would like to start by thanking our esteemed speaker Kirori Ghosh ma'am for such an absorbing discussion. This session opened our eyes to a variety of aspects related to drafting that we would not have been aware of otherwise. Secondly, I would like to thank Siddharth Yadav ji, State Secretary ABVP Delhi, and National Media Convener of ABVP and entire team of ABVP CLC. Last but not the least, I would like to thank participants for being both patient and participative, which only improved the quality of the discussion. Thank you.
So with that, we will conclude this webinar. Ma'am, thank you so much once again for taking out the
Most
time.
welcome. My pleasure.
It
My pleasure.
was a
Thank
great
you.
session,
Thank you.
and hope to do it more often, ma'am.
Absolutely. Okay. Bye.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.